Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Today, something I've been looking forward to. We have a kit here that has been loaned to the channel by a good friend of the channel, Ian Nichols, another Formula One petrolhead like myself. And he has got a couple of kits he's loaned to me to review. This is the first of the two of them, and it comes really from the golden era, some people would say, of Formula One, sort of 1975 to 85. 75 here in particular, with Niki Lauda's Ferrari 312T, with which he won his first world title after joining Ferrari for that year. Now, many of you will have seen the movie Rush, and this car features, just for a moment, most of that movie is about 1976, but you do see flashes of it, and you see him test driving them and all that kind of thing, making some quite derogatory comments about what he thought about the Ferraris of the time, saying that they needed a lot of improvement. I'm paraphrasing. He uses some very typical Niki Lauda strong language. God rest his soul, Niki was a great guy, wasn't he? At the time, when I was a youngster, I didn't really like him because he was so foul-mouthed, and I have to be honest, we didn't swear much in those days, and he seemed horrendous. He was almost like he needed an X rating before he opened his mouth. But what a wonderful driver. And he was a very clever man as well, because we all know that he went on to found a very successful airline. And of course he also came back into Formula One with Mercedes and brought Lewis Hamilton into the Mercedes team under his guidance, and did a lot of great stuff. An absolute brilliant ambassador for the sport, and a sad loss when we lost him in 2018, wasn't it, I think? Anyway, let's crack into this. So it's Tamiya. So now, those of you that have never seen one of these, this is actually a classic edition. I'm not actually sure the year on this particular one. I don't mean the original year, but I mean the year that it was actually issued in this form, because I think it's a bit more recent. I can tell by the actual that it's not yellowed enough to be one of the very first issues. So I think it's one of these where Tamiya sometimes reissue them from time to time. But let's have a look. So it's basically a flat 12 Ferrari engine, flat 12 Ferrari boxer engine. Here we go. Detachable wheels, movable front and rear suspension, steerable front wings, semi-pneumatic rubber light tyres, and a detachable cowling. So there's a lot of detail in here. Now the thing you need to know about these, this represents when I really started watching Formula One. 74, 75 was when I got into it, so I was delighted to see this, and Ian has this and another one which we'll see later, both which excited me. But this is in the days when Tamiya did everything and all their instructions were in Japanese, which is really hard to follow, especially in a complex kit like this. And he's actually got, I think it's an Australian reprinting of the instructions, so we can see them in clear English. So this is going to be really nice. So let's have a look at what we got. Again, there's all this writing on the side. It doesn't really tell you anything because it's all in Japanese. And I'm afraid that beyond speaking to Mr. Tamiya for about 30 seconds, I didn't really. That's about as far as I've got with my Japanese. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's have a look. I was going to say I'm Ichiban, but clearly I'm not. Number one. Yeah, you got your profile. You can see it's quite a nice looking car when you see it in the top profile. It looks more elegant, I think, than it does in the sort of side profile. But this car was very successful, make no mistake. I'll spin it around the other side, by the way. Almost like in the style of the era, a bit like Matchbox, they advertised the other products. So they've got the McLaren M23, which I think was the Fittipaldi car, from this era. I think from the same year. I think that was the 75 car. And then you've got the Lotus 72 from the same year, I think, or thereabouts. And then the earlier Ferrari 312, that's the earlier iteration of it, which looks very different. So the aerodynamics you can see the aerodynamics are coming along rapidly. And there's a lot more attention to things like the airflow and how it's going to go over the wings, and you can see the fillets, things like these kick-ups ahead of the tyres. They're starting to pay more attention to it. I had this, just as a slight aside, I had this model as a Scalextric car in about 76, 77. Where did I get my Scalextric? I had the Walter Wolf set with two Walter Wolfs in it. a black one and a red one, I think it was. And I then got, this is an extra Ferrari, and I had another one. What's the other one I had? Definitely had the Ferrari. And then later, I won't bore you with it now, but later I got into other scale electrics, about 1980 onwards. But I certainly had this Ferrari as a scale electric car. So let's be careful. Precious, precious. It's Ian's precious. He's precious about this like I am a wing of wings. So I've got to treat this with some respect. Oh look, the tyres are all like in these, the way it comes, you've got your tyres all in this sort of a pre-formed, vac-formed pack. Yeah, and then you've got all the other parts. You've got your chassis on one side, you've got all your aerodynamics and your clear parts on the other. They're really nice, these kits. Now I built the later one. I think I've told some of you this before. I did the 312 T4, the 1979 car of Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve. So I was a bit of a fan of Villeneuve at the time. And I built the car shortly before his death, actually. It was really unfortunate timing. Anyway, well, we'll just have to cut into this, get those tyres out. This is what Ian is now doing. God forgive him! I'm just joking. I'm not going to touch these. These can't be opened, okay? But we'll have a little look at them, and you see how the nice way that poor Ian's thinking. I told him not to open those. Damn you! It's like me. It's like me building a winged wings kit. And you'll burn in hell forever for this. No, don't worry. We're not going to open that. But this is the typical way Tamiya do it. All their Formula 1 cars come basically in this format, if you like. Anyway, without further ado, let's just move that to one side for now, and we'll have a look at the instructions, especially the English ones, which we'll be able to enjoy. One thing that is definitely worth seeing, if you've never seen one of these Tamiya big scale, 12th scale Formula 1 cars, what do they call this one, by the way? Number 75, is it? I think they call it number 75. No, wrong. Kit number 1219, they call it. Series number 17. That's strange the way that they have this nomenclature. Anyway, this is what you get, and it's absolutely gorgeously done. And this is where Tamiya are particularly good, I think. If you've ever seen the Tamiya catalogue down the years, and I first saw it about 74, 75, they used to always show every kit was built. And they were built by someone who was really meticulous, but they were always built absolutely perfect. Whatever the subject, even if it was an aircraft or a tank, it wouldn't have any weathering on it or anything remotely like that, any washers, nothing like that. Everything would be pristine, like it just come out of the factory. Now that works with Formula 1 cars and motorbikes, because that's the way they're presented on the grid, okay? You know, they don't rock up dirty until the end. So it works really well, and they would always look, in the catalogue, they would look absolutely knockout, really impressive stuff. And then they used to have them in this format and the instructions. So you'd have the finished model, and that is the model, not the real car, looking absolutely superb. But unfortunately in black and white. And then they've got all these photos of the real car and all its components, so in the rear suspension and the ducts for the brakes. You see we've got now brake intake ducts to cool the brake discs and pads. Something that only came along in the early mid-70s. And then you got same again at the rear. You've got rear inboard brakes, and again a duct to cool them. Instrumentation, exhausts, the discs themselves there, and all sorts of stuff, you know. And it just gives you a little bit of a helping hand, a bit of a reference. Not the greatest photographs in the world, especially it doesn't help that they've got them in strange colours, some of them. A bit of blue, I'm sure that's about. But then when you open it, you can see what I'm talking about here, and this is really where things start to go wrong if you bought one in period, because it's really, really hard to follow, I've got to be honest. Everything's in Japanese, okay? And they've got, you know, warning, do this, do that, and you don't know, it means nothing. Not a word of English anywhere. Which is a shame, because you've got this very nice photos of the real car here in action, and some really impressive history, and we lose all of that. We lose all of it. So we won't dwell on this because it's this is the original. We'll go to the much more practical, rewritten And I don't know if this was a local thing in Australia, but this is brilliant that they do this, and it's the same with the other kit that we'll see in a few days. We have a nice English version of it. Now I could sit and read this for hours. I won't, because I think that would be boring TV for you. I'll just give you a little flavour of it, that's all. It says the name Ferrari is synonymous with the ultimate symbol of glamour and luxury associated with Grand Prix racing and sports car development. The founder of this Italian auto company, Enzo Ferrari, started racing back in 1923, and he won his first race in Ravenna, Italy. Impressed by his talent, the Countess Paolina Baracca, mother of the World War I flying ace Francesco Baracca, asked him to use her son's prancing horse symbol as a logo on his cars. From then onwards, Enzo adopted the black Cavallino Rampante, the rampant horse, on a yellow background as his insignia, and has now become a world-famous icon. By 1929, Ferrari was in charge of all the motor racing activities of the Alfa Romeo company, but in 1932 they withdrew their support from international motor racing. So he continued racing activities under his own team, now known as Scuderia Ferrari. Using mainly Alfa Romeo cars. In 1937 he was sufficiently far-sighted to see that development of other manufacturers would soon leave the Alfas behind, and he started to develop his own cars. I won't read any more because it will go on, but it's nice that this is here. It's wonderful reading, and it's spot on, you know. And talks about, I'll just jump to Niki Lauda. It says, the Ferrari return to prominence in Grand Prix racing became apparent in 1974 and reached new heights in 1979 when their new signing Niki Lauda became the first driver since John Surtees in 1964 to actually win the World Championship. However, these failures, he would have won also in 1974, but for a series of mishaps. Yeah, they had a bit of reliability trouble and crashes and things, you know. Between him and Clay Regazzoni, they won 6 Grand Prix. Lauda winning 5 of them. Fantastic. Fastest laps. Boom, 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 boom. It has a transverse gearbox, so that's the T, where it says 312T in the title. The T is transverse. And it just goes on to say he became a national hero and blah 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 blah, Kearney numbers, etc, etc. Anyway, enough. You get the flavour. It was a kind of an e-book. It's also in German as well. They've translated it into German. Now we can actually see those same instructions, but in English, and this is an absolute winner. And without this, we couldn't really do the review. So you can see here all your pedal box being assembled, and the tub. Either side of the driver is the fuel tanks. Oh, that's pretty safe, right? Then you've got this very impressive looking, and they use quite a lot of metal parts. I think there's metal parts for the steering column, and you've got your movable this actual steering arm, which of course is movable, turns the steering on this car. There's your, just proving my point there, the fuel tank caps. They have twin caps on these. They have one that acts like an air vent, and so you take both the caps off when you're refueling it, or you at least release one of the caps while you're pumping fuel in through the other hose, so that it basically lets the air out. And then you get radiator construction. This is going to get very involved on this kit, I can tell you. Radiator construction of the radiators going in, got your gear change, gear knob going in there, you got your radiators and your oil tanks going in, and then finally you've got the instrumentation, the steering wheel, the driver's seat going in here, instrumentation, oil tanks going in at the side and behind the water radiator. And this is when you get these beautiful real coil springs in these kits. They really do make an effort, Tamiya. They really are beautiful. If you like racing cars, you should get yourself one of these, because they really are a great building experience. I mean, I've built 3 of them. I've done 2 Ferraris, because I built the Nigel Mansell one. Many of you will have seen this in my cabinet, or when I showed you at one of the shows, and of course the McLaren Senna drove as well. and they really are good fun and quite a learning experience. It's a real educational journey, I'd say. Anyway, here you've got some real in period photos of the front suspension. So it's got is it push rod suspension? I think it's push rod style. And then you can see the upper arms. Then in those days they were made of steel, of course. Later they moved them off to aluminium, and then of course carbon fibre and Kevlar. Then you got all your brakes with your brake ducting. Quite a complicated assembly, as you can see, because inside you actually have a real metal nut so that you can screw the wheels on and off. Another one of the features of these kits. Putting in all your front suspension here, and then you're going to start your engine construction, starting off with this flat boxer engine. Boxer engines are called such because the pistons punch out like a boxer, not up and down, in and out, and they are flat, and hence they have lower centre of gravity. Now this is good in a Formula 1 car. Wasn't so good later when they needed to have a narrow engine, but that's another story. We'll come to that another day. In this era, these engines were king, really. They certainly developed the most power, and they were very reliable normally, but they were very heavy. That's the only downside, and not very aerodynamic. Anyway, here you've got all your ignition system, and I've personally done this on the other Ferrari, and I can tell you it's a bit of a nightmare job, threading all these wires together, and then you've got to basically crimp them up. See that? This is not an easy process, I can tell you. It's incredibly fiddly, even though it's at a reasonable scale. So you're going to be kept very, very busy with this. It's a bit like that Tamiya motorbike I did, but worse, because there's a lot more of it. Then you've got things like the alternator starter motor, all going in. Then you've got this spaghetti, and there's no other word for it really. Again, I'll zoom you in for this because it gives you an idea about what's involved. You've got to connect all those wires up to the right place, all the tubes, and it's not easy. It's not easy. You've got the fuel tubes, you've got the ignition wires. An absolute Italian spaghetti if ever I saw it, see? I can feel some of you getting that feeling that I get when I see rigging on biplanes. A shudder down the spine. Anyway, it's doable. I managed it when I was about 15 or 16, so I'm sure you can all manage it. Then you've got the transverse gearbox at the back, which is quite interesting. I didn't realise it was a transverse. That's just showing my ignorance, actually. Then you've got your rear ducting for the brake ducts for the discs, which are inboard discs, which just come up straight out of the gearbox on the drive shafts, and the discs are there. Not in the wheel hubs like they are later. And Lotus adopted a similar system to this. So again, the idea being to get the weight inboard, lowest centre of gravity as inboard to the centre of the car as possible. That's what it's all about. Then we've got all the ancillary parts like engine management. You've got your electric ignition system going on the top there. You've got the gluing the gearbox to the engine. It doesn't actually say what they are there, does it? It's the distributor. I think it's the electronic feed for the distributor. Yes, it is. It goes into the distributor cap. I'm right. Then we've got the exhaust system coming on here. A bit more spaghetti for you. Bigger spaghetti this time, but still spaghetti. Metal spaghetti. And then we've got the rear dampers coming in, and the rear suspension with real coil springs. It's a fully operating suspension system on this one. And you can see the spaghetti nature of the exhaust. It's quite challenging, this kit. It's quite challenging if you're not used to them. Everything is so tightly packaged in the real car that it has to be, you know. And then you've got your rear uprights for your rear suspension. Obviously looking at this upside down at the moment. Again, you've got the wheel nut going in the centre of the hub, because you'll be screwing the wheels in later. And then we've got our drive shafts coming in here. So you've got this is the base of the rear wing assembly. They didn't have a crash structure in those days. It was just metal plates basically. And you've got anti-roll bars here, and then you've got your main drive shaft. And the anti-roll bars, yeah, that connects between the lower suspension and the upper suspension. We've got accelerator wire, clutch wire. You've got another little oil tank there. It's probably an oil tank for the gearbox, I think. And then we're going to attach it all together and bring it in. The engine and gearbox are going to come together with all this tubing. Can you see all these tubes? Again, more spaghetti. Oh Lord, this is it's a full-on job, is this? You've got to get them exactly right in terms of your measurements, which is why they provide a ruler at the bottom, so you can measure out the exact length of these tubes, and you must get it right, otherwise you'll run out of tubing if you make them too long. Make them too short, they won't reach, so you can't win really. Then we've got some of the top, the bracing for the rollover bar that braces to the back of the engine, and this is in the event of a crash that gives the driver's head some protection. And then we've got the rear wing coming in here, the rear wing supporting the end plates, upper and lower element of it. Well, it's a single element, but it's in two parts. And then we've got some bodywork on the left, and then the bodywork on the right, which covers up all the radiators. The rear wings coming in here. Finished shot of the car. It looks very like the McLaren actually. The base of that rear wing reminds me of the McLaren M23 a lot. Very similar design. Hey, they copy each other, don't they? And then we've got our wheels being put together, front wheels and then rear wheels. Over here we have got these. We've got our front, this is basically the bodywork, the nose, and we're looking at it upside down, and here's your front wing, and a very small, very simple front wing in those days. Then we've got our top bodywork for the air box, for the intake for the engine, and you know, nowadays they have all this padded supporting, but they didn't have much then. Little small windscreen and your mirrors going on, and then we actually screw in drop our bodywork on, and we screw together our rear tyres, and they provide you with a little mount completed wheel by G19. I don't know if they provide a little. Okay, they do. I think it's answered my question. A special wheel screwdriver assembly. Look at this. This is for screwing the wheels on. So they give you like a bespoke tool that screws the wheels on, which is really clever. And then, basically, your car is finished, and then you get to deciding whether you want to be Clay Regazzoni. I think it's number 11. There he is. Or Niki Lauda, the world champion who won the title. And then at the end you get your sprue maps. Slightly odd that they're at the end, but there we go. Back a bit for this. Sprue maps. Well, let's just I glanced over that too much, didn't I? Let's see Niki Lauda and Clay Regazzoni again. There we go. Top plan view and the side plan view. And then we've got our sort of basic paint guide and sprue maps. Another sprue map. Another sprue map. Well, there you go. That's it. You can see that it's actually quite involved, isn't it? There's a lot of wires, there's a heck of a lot of tubing, and you've got to cut them all to great precision to make them absolutely bang on in terms of dimensions. That is very nice. I'm going to pop that over there where it's safe. And then I'm just debating whether we actually open the bags. I'm a bit reluctant actually. I'm a bit reluctant. Ian did say I could do, but I am reluctant to do that. And I say open the bags. I forgot that it's staples. Some of the parts are not in a bag, so we can have a look at this. Here we've got our classic. This is classic of Tamiya. They've got a part here that's the main. I was going to say monocoque. It's not a monocoque in this as such. I suppose it is because I'm right the first time because you're bolting the engine to the back here where my hand is, engine and gearbox goes at the back, so it is a monocoque, I suppose. It's just not it's not a tub as such. It's all aluminium, but on the real car, of course, which is why it's this colour. But they do a beautiful job of these. Now, this is unfortunately this is one of the colours. I've talked about this in the past, where I have cheated my way to victory with some of these Formula 1 cars, and I have gone at length talking about how you can actually get away with not painting them. Did I actually just say that out loud? Disgraceful. Talk about cheating and deceiving and being a CAD modeller, eh? But this is not perhaps the best example, because unfortunately it has got this grain in it because it's got this metalised finish. So you really need to paint it up, I think. However, when you see the red plastic, and you see this with their other kits, sometimes the plastic is absolutely perfect and fault-free on the bodywork, so you don't necessarily always have to paint it. So that's a game-changing moment for some of you, because I know a lot of people don't like the idea of spray painting big, glossy, very high gloss finishes, which have got to be perfect. It makes it very off-putting, I can appreciate that. So this is what I've done in the past. I've got away with, if that was black, like it is on the Ferrari, the later Ferrari that I did, don't need to paint that, because it's absolutely the right colour and the right finish and everything. You can do a few little highlights here and there if you want, but you don't need to go spraying it up. So be advised, be advised. But you can see that it's got all these rivets, and this is where your tanks are that I talked about. The driver literally sits between two enormous fuel tanks, which must be very, very unsettling. These days the fuel tank is behind the driver. This is literally either side of him, so you can appreciate what happened with Niki Lauda's accident. In a car that's design was almost the same as this, it was almost identical, just an evolution of it, and he had that terrible accident, and of course the fuel all ignited. Well, it's no wonder, is it? You're sitting in two bathtubs of petrol at either side of it. Not good. Right, that's that. I'm just discussing whether I should open these. I don't really want to open the bags for them, because this is a classic kit. I think we'll just have a look at them as they are. I think you'll get the flavour of it, fair enough. Let me zoom you in. Here we've got another example where we've got some metalised parts. Now, I'm not too sure about these. It does show in the artwork, the wheels, for example. Got the seat there. They do this thing where they tend to have things in the right colours. The wheels, actually, I think I was going to criticise the colour, but I'm wrong. I think they were this sort of a duller aluminium. They weren't like they were later, they're much shinier on the later Ferrari I produced. But you can see here quite a lot of detail. Look at these. Here is all of your shockers, just dampers, suspension dampers. Now what they do, they have a damper up the middle and they have a coil spring around the outside. So they're basically coilovers, aren't they? As we would call them today. Over here we've got our brake system. You've got various brackets here. That's part of the brakes. There's the brake pistons, in fact, there and there. Brake pistons. And you've actually got your fluid reservoirs for the brakes and the clutch. Brake, clutch, and what's the other one? I think there might be two separate reservoirs for the brakes. One's for the clutch, but there's two, I think, for the brakes. Interestingly. That's that. Then here we've got our bodywork. Now, going back to what I said, yeah, it's true, isn't it? If you really want to cheat, be a cheater and deceiver. You can do it with these kits, because they come with a really nice red finish. Alright, look, I tell you what, I'm going to take these out because it's very critical that we see this. But I don't think I'm going to open many other bags, because I don't feel sure about that. It just feels a bit like might not be appropriate on a classic kit. Whoops. Come on. come on. Coming, doesn't want to come out. Come on, you. Ah! There we go. Right, okay, I got that off. Okay, so we are going to look at this because it's very important. Here is the nose of the car. Now, it has got, it's not as good as, I've got to say it's not as good as the later mouldings. I think this is the issue. The mouldings got so good toward the end of the 80s. This is not quite as good, and you have got, unfortunately, some flaws within the plastic there, which I didn't suffer from on the Ferrari, the F190, the Nigel Mansell one. This is actually off the sprue already, so we'll have a look at this one. It was off the sprue in the bag, by the way, Ian. Not me, Gulf. Honest, I didn't do it. But look, this is pretty nice. I mean, really, you could kind of get away with not painting that. There's a bit of a sink mark there, though. Ooh, that's a bit un-Tamiya-like, isn't it? Has been known, though. Again, we're in the sort of tooling from the 70s here. I mean, this was tooled about 1976, thereabouts. So you've got to bear that in mind. It is basically 50 years ago. 50 years old. So it's a tricky one because it's obvious that it's not quite. That's trying to come off the sprue. I've got to be careful here. Don't want to have any more off the sprue that I. You see the bodywork. It's a nice finish. If you really wanted to cut a corner, you can, but it's not as good as their later stuff. But take my word for it. When they got to the 1990s and we had the later Ferrari for Mansell and Prost, suddenly you could get away with not painting, and I've shown that model. Then here we've got all our engine and radiator parts, all in this, again, a colour you don't necessarily need to paint, just again that we've got some marks within the plastic, they're not on the surface. This is actually in where the pellets have melted at different rates in the extruder that goes to the injection moulder. So that's maybe, you're probably going to have to paint it. And then over here we've got the engine. And yeah, that sprue, I'm pretty sure it's the same. I think the engine didn't hardly change at all for a number of years, the real engine. And I think that sprue looks very familiar to me. I think that was pretty much the same sprue I did on the 312 T4, unless Ian can correct me on that. You got your engine and your transverse gearbox. There's the sump. Engine sump here. So, yeah. There we have it. That's a lot of the major parts. I feel guilty about having that bag now. I wish I hadn't done that. But I will check within. We've got the seat here, but it's actually quite hard to see because unfortunately it's upside down. And this is on can you see that? Driver's seat? It's a bit tricky to see, I think. There it is. And then we've also got, it's like a rubberised plastic this, and they've actually rather nicely got the constant velocity universal joints. The rubber gaiters, which looks really good. Those are really nice. So I'll put them back in there. Now, a little bit easy to see perhaps will be this lot, even though we definitely can't open this. It's more than my life is worth. But this is your rubber tyres. Now they do come with a central seam, which you can probably just about make out there. Look at the other end, you might get a better view of it. But you can see here you get some amazing things. So they include a pair of tweezers for you to use. Isn't that cool? Pair of tweezers. You've got all your suspension damper springs here. You've got some all the tubing and the wiring. So the clear tubing is the fuel tube and the black is the electric wiring. That is very nice, and this is very typical of these Tamiya 12 scale Formula 1 cars. You'll see all of those things in their others. I actually have the Nigel Mansell Williams FW14B, and I stupidly sold it. I wish I had it now. Really, it's really rare now. So I wish I had sold it. I was a bit put off it as a kit, only because it had a lot of carbon fibre on the real car, and they had these carbon fibre decals, and I was thinking, oh, you know, this is going to be a bit of a pain. And this was at a time when, this is a good 10, 13 years ago, I wasn't quite as confident, I wasn't quite as good as I am now. And I just thought, oh no, I'll sell it because it's worth 120 quid, you know. So I let it go, but bad decision. We all do it, don't we, sometimes, and then regret it. I also sold my 24 scale Airfix Mosquito, another daft decision I made. Ugh. Anyway, finally, let's just have a look at these other parts. You see, this is a sealed bag, so I'm not going to open it. It's not even a stapled one. So let's have a look. It's the main bodywork here. Let's have a look at this. Just have a little bit less light. It might just help us, actually. There we go. So you can see that you've got the bodywork in one huge piece, and obviously you've got your very nice clear windscreen. It's got this blue tint to it, which they did have. What's that about? Just wondering what these are. Like blue discs, I suppose. But yeah, I can't see any flaws in that plastic at all, if I'm honest. So actually, I think you might get away with not painting if you wish to. But if you do paint it, you're going to have to ace it, boys and girls, because that's the way it goes, I'm afraid. Which is why I'm sort of repeatedly saying maybe if you don't want to paint it. Just wondering if that spin around. It's a bit in harm's way there. We've got another section underneath where we've got some of the side body parts here, and you've got your end plates for the rear wings there, and they've all got the rivets on them. Very nice, very nice, very nice. That, love it. And then we have got, and this is something that Tamiya were really into, which I'm not sure about actually. Chromed plastic. Ooh, this is a bit sort of like, who else used to do this? Was it Monogram? Some of those American companies were really into this chroming, weren't they? Now they've done it pretty well, but it's not flawless. I wonder if you can see this on the rear wing. Can you see that flaw? Yeah. It's got like a ripple in the where it's been chromed. It's probably a, oh, I don't know what it is. Something in the process that's gone wrong, which is a little bit unfortunate. See it there? Yeah, that's not pretty, is it? So that's less than perfect. And actually there's more of it here. Can you see that on the front wing? Can you see it there? Yeah. Again, that's not great actually. And I was always a bit dubious about this. I thought, well, actually, you know, look, they've done it so you can have the silver steel discs, but I think it works all right on the discs, funnily enough, but it doesn't work so well on these big areas because, again, when this was tooled, it's quite a long time ago, and I don't think that they had the standards that Tamiya have today. They were good. They were probably better than other people, but better than other people 50 years ago, do you know what I mean? So I'm not sure about that, whether that's really a good thing. By the way, the little dimple in the middle is where the Ferrari logo goes. Now one thing I would say about this, there is actually an Agip, the Italian petroleum company, that could go over that, and so I think actually it might not be a big deal. But at the rear, the Goodyear sticker is not in the right place. It's not ideal. It's not the best sprue in the kit, that is it. So we'll put that to one side. Then we've got some white sprue with some white parts, and this, of course, again, trying to minimise the painting element. These are the parts that would be white. So you've got some things like obviously that main bodywork for the airbox behind the driver's head. and a couple of other things. They've decided to make the exhausts white. Well, that's not really the right colour, is it? They're more of a sort of smoky grey, aren't they? But again, these big areas of the red and white plastic do seem to be pretty flawless, most of them. And then you've got all your track rods and control rods, your steering rods, and these are done very, very well by Tamiya. I can tell you from personal experience that these, you can see they've got like an open mouth at the end, and what that does is it gives you a really accurate. They really fit nicely. They really do. Take my word for it. So you know, you can see all these suspension arms. They're all like an open mouth design to click onto the actual corresponding part, and it works very well. So that's the white parts. then that just leaves us with all the black parts. So this is going to be pretty hard to photograph, I suppose. We've got the steering wheel here. A bit closer. Steering wheel. There. It's the back of it in actual fact. And you get your instrument panels, your suspension arms, quite a few of those. And then on the other side you've got other elements of the engine and gearbox. And the rockers and the rollover hoop, see that there, protect the driver's head. And you've got various things like the battery here. That's the actual racing battery. That's the battery. That's the cover with the caps on the cells. And then lots and lots of fine parts like the injectors here for the engine. Quite a lot of those. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I mean, it's very of its time, I would say. Sorry, I'm just going to see you back. The standard of moulding is not to today's standard, but anybody judging Tamiya by this would be making a mistake. You have to put it in the context of 1975-76, which is when this kit's from, the tooling. The more modern ones are far superior to this. This hasn't surprised me though, I've just forgotten. Just forgotten really. So there you have it. It's a very nice kit, and I say one or two of those flaws I've pointed out, they're really kind of, mustn't forget his instructions. The flaws that I've pointed out are very much sort of things of their time, and I would say to you that in 1976, 77, pardon? That wasn't me, Governor, obviously. Honest. It's just that, you know, then Tamiya were still superior, but that there's one or two elements of their process that perhaps weren't quite as perfect as they are now. None of those flaws that I've spotted there were in either the later Ferrari. I don't remember them in the T4, 312 T4, to be honest. I did recall some minor issues around I think it was the exhaust trumpets, which were all metallised. But other than that, nothing. And then the latest one, which you've seen that I've still got today, the 1990 Mansell Ferrari. None of those issues at all. None of them. And that had metal suspension arms as well, as did the McLaren, which came out a year later. None of those issues affected either of those kits. So they just get better and better and better. So you are looking at an old tooling here. Bear that in mind. So what would I give it? It's tricky when you're judging older kits, isn't it? I think I'd give it 9.5 out of 10, taking everything into account when it was created and you know what the market was then. I do think that some of those quality glitches that were more obvious. You can see there was some dust under. It was actually underneath the front wing. I don't know if you picked up on that. There was some little dust under the chroming. You'd think they'd have picked up on that even in the mid-late 70s. But anyway, this is one of the very iconic cars. Niki Lauda's first World Championship. And if you remember, James Hunt raced against this in the Hesketh. And I said it was briefly shown, this car. This exact variant was shown racing against Hunt in the Rush movie, and then the movie gets into top gear in '76 when Hunt joins McLaren. But we digress. All about Niki Lauda today. So yes, the Rat, as they used to call him. It's a very nice model indeed. There are issues there that could easily be fixed. You could dip those metallized parts. You could dip them in some paint stripper and remove the metallization, or lots of chemicals would do it actually. Bit of salt, well, not salt because that would attack the plastic, but there are stripper products you can get that you can pop it in and then just alclad it. Sorted. Because there's nothing wrong with the finish, it's all something to do with when they've put the metallization chroming on. So there we go. Anyway, 9.5 out of 10 for me. I think that's actually fair, factoring in it's 1975, it's created originally. We have another one of these though coming, which is even more special in my heart. The next one is going to be the Lotus 78, the world's first ground effect Formula 1 car. True ground effect. And we'll get some of the views to look forward to. Anyway, I hope you'll give me a 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. Please look after yourselves, stay well, stay safe, and until next time, when I'll have another one for you, take care, thanks a lot, and until next time, bye for now.